expensive in the form of electricity and fuel. We must also restructure the price of fuel. So your petrol price, your diesel price are very expensive, and we need to rework that particular review and ensure that we are able to use this as a handle to attract investors. We also need to look into the issue of agriculture. Part of the reasons we want to expropriate land without compensation is because as the young people in this country are ready to engage in agricultural activities. One of the issues that are raised by the research currently is that the average age of a farmer is between 58 years and 64 years, and that the farming itself as an economic activity has gone down, and it then means young people need to come as an army to join in this particular important and fundamental economical activity that will ensure food security in the country and ensure that we are able to do our own part in terms of supplying even external countries or outside countries with the food that we make. It is also important that we beneficiate also in this particular sector, which has not been great, particularly for black farmers. And we need to then ensure that also we are able to have handles that allow black farmers to be able to beneficiate and create jobs. There is an establishment that has been announced of a fund that has been announced by the Department of Public Works. The ANC wants to applaud the Department of Public Works for that 100 billion of infrastructure investment fund. But the message that we want to send to the department as the ANC is that it must also ensure that it sees transformation as part and parcel of the spending of that particular investment. So black businesses must be able to also get assistance in that particular investment fund, particularly when we look at the issues of youth, women, and people living with disabilities. We are also advised that a 2.5 billion will go towards EPWP. As young people, we are not the biggest fan of EPWP, but on the other hand, we can't keep young people idling continuously. At least let them idle in those short-term jobs and ensure that at least they benefit from that 2.5 billion. We are told new 8,000 jobs will be created, and we are proposing that what the department did last year of ensuring that 66% of women benefit in this program, they continue, and that 44% of young people continue to benefit as they had done last year. The National Youth Service also is one program that we want to advise the departments that are embarking on to work in partnership with the National Youth Development Agency on, so that at least we are able to leverage better value on the National Youth Service. The government is encouraging public-private partnerships that will assist us to also look into how can we fund programs that relates to youth, women, and people with disabilities, but also stretch out to the issues of states, SA, and civil organizations. There is a program well, it's not a program, there's an amount of money that private sector raise that is called CSI. And that CSI, we are proposing that 50% should go towards those particular sectors, so that at least we are able to give a bit of funding on those sectors, because the growth in those areas will assist us a lot in ensuring that the young people benefit. Now, as I learned, Honorable Speaker, sports has what we called performing arts, and that area is an untouched area which will create jobs for young people, and we are proposing that the Department of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture look into ensuring that they establish centers where young people can actually record their content, but the Department of Communications must ensure that they open platforms for young people to be able to inject that content there and create jobs for young people. And lastly, Chair, as I sit down, I propose that as this particular House and honorable members, we also note that in this country there's one commander-in-chief and there's one president of the country, and can we allow that president to lead us and stop trying to attempt from whatever platforms that we get into to be president when we are not elected. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Mpiti.
Honorable House Chairperson, Leader of the Democratic Alliance, Musi Maimane. Mr. President, please take a deep look at South Africa and its youth. Life is harsh and unforgiving, especially if you are young and unemployed. Being young and unemployed in South Africa is pure hell. We speak these words, Mr. President, to break the many silences that we have become accustomed to, the silences that echo in this august house. How long must we wait and sit in silence, because surely the weight of injustice will choke us. Youth unemployment, Mr. President, is killing young people. I'm sure in this house we all know someone who has been unemployed. We all know someone who has not been able to find a job. So this debate is about people versus the establishment. It is about young people not having opportunities in this country. Babaga Andile, you should be uncomfortable. You should be uncomfortable as you benefit, as your kids benefit from the connections that you have.
On a point of order, Chair.
Please don't matter.
He's saying to less about. He's saying to less.
Go ahead. I'm listening. I'm listening.
No, what I'm saying, Chair.
No, go ahead and say what you wanted to say.
No, here in this house, the president is the president, must be referred in, you cannot refer him in an informal or recent way. Please, there are rules in this house.
Yeah, okay, all right, I'll come back. Honorable member, proceed, I'll come back to this question, it's an important one, we'll deal with it, yeah.
We should be uncomfortable in this house while young people remain without jobs, without dignity, while their degrees and certificates collect dust. How long, Mr. President, must we wait? How long must we wait?
Sorry, just hold on. Take your seat. Yeah. Yes.
Kerry, you must also check if he was supposed to say Kosia Andile, not Baba.
How long, Mr. President, must we wait for the outcomes of the Presidential Job Summit that took place last year? We expected this summit to address the issues regarding the failing employment tax incentive. If we are indeed serious about skills development amongst young people, then we need to look at the state of our TVET colleges in this country. It is this government that needs to support them. The NYDA, Mr. President, has lost confidence in the eyes of young people. You said, Mr. President, in your Youth Day address that the NYDA trained over 400,000 young people. But, Mr. President, you failed to mention that 25,000 of these young people were only able to find jobs. That's 6%. Mr. President, the NYDA is supposed to empower young people with startup ideas. However, if you don't hold the green, black, and yellow membership, you don't benefit. So, Mr. President, we won't forget how the NYDA has become an aftercare for former ANC Youth League members. Mr. President, the National Rural Youth Service has completely failed. In its 8 years of inception, it's only managed to train over 22,000 young people. Firstly, this is not enough. Secondly, we also can't be sure of these numbers because in 2015, in Bizana and Queenstown, where young people who were part of these programs received certificates that they did not even complete the course for. So what are we measuring? What are we measuring? Are we measuring outputs or input or impact? Those young people are still far away from sustainable jobs. Because when you truly care about young people, you don't stop caring about them when they leave the program, but you follow up and find out whether they are able to find sustainable jobs in this country. Mr. President, I want you to come with me to the DA-led municipality of Midvaal, led by the youngest mayor in the country, Mayor Bongani Beloy. They have launched a startup program that assists young people who own companies and cooperatives. The story of Taike Koloshe, a young person participant in this program, was able to start a grass-cutting business through this program. He now employs over 42 people in his company. Mr. President, come with me to the city of Johannesburg, led by Ntate Hemen Mashaba. where artisans are currently being trained in collaboration with the University of Johannesburg. The DA-led coalition has established opportunity centers to focus on the basket of services that will achieve real empowerment and small businesses that young people are leading. These are the DA mayors who are showing the DA difference to South Africa. Mongameli Sidikiwe, we need change right now. We need young people to have opportunities, and we will not stop.
We need change right there, please. The time has expired. Honorable Holomisa.
Deputy Chairperson, Honorable President, Deputy President, and Honorable Members. The UDM supports the budget. Kawan ANC. Masela. Honorable Members, the President is staring a mammoth task in the face in his effort to clean the decay that corruption has brought in government and its institutions. The UDM commends you, Mr. President, on taking the brave steps to institute the commissions of inquiry into state capture and the hijacking of the Public Investment Corporation. However, sir, you must please realize that the public is asking what's next. What is the point of spending time, money on these commissions if it bears no tangible results? Mr. President, perhaps you should meet with the two commissions to assist in what I would call phase 2 of the process. In the proposed meeting, you could discuss how law enforcement agencies and the Auditor General could be involved in making things happen. This could be done with the view to answer the people who wants to know what action will be taken. In particular, sir, the UDM wishes the commissions to follow the money trail right up to the till. How much money have left our shores in the name of investment, which was illicitly routed into the personal international banks' accounts of the corrupt? Interpol should be roped in to assist in this regard. As part of phase 2, insofar as the Party Commission is concerned, the PIC's unlisted transactions should be dug into to see who borrowed money from the PIC and whether those loans are serviced. Lastly, we urge you to engage with the commissions to ascertain whether the time frames and budgets they have been allocated is sufficient for them to really get to the bottom of the road. Ukwabafa bangxolayo ngapha. Ingathi sizawuqhelela apha kule. Uzawudilishana nabo next time.
Honorable Kachalia.
The budget in the presidency is largely focused on the NDP, which is intended to rally the nation around a high-growth strategy. It has failed to do so. Since inception, the average growth rate has been 1.4% and will fall woefully short of NDP 2030 projections. Growth has been limited since 1994 and non-existent over the past decade. Good advice notwithstanding, the reality is that the ANC elite has been much more interested in rapid accumulation than any pro-growth policy. There is no silver bullet. Increased foreign direct investment will help, but we need to address factors limiting domestic investment in the local economy. What is needed, as the economist Charles Simpkins says, is a series of mutually supportive measures to remove the constraints on growth and a change in mentality. Unless these changes materialize, they will continue our slide down the economic league table towards dystopia. At the heart of the NDP is the concept of a developmental state, focused on a determined elite that represents a deformed variation of capitalism in which the state exerts political power over economic matters through draconian and often daft regulatory intervention. But a development state and democracy do not always make good fellows, bedfellows. They have historically been reliant on a fair measure of repression. Could it work in South Africa? Its undesirability on the grounds of democratic erosion and illiberalism notwithstanding? I'm afraid the computer says no. As I said in my DPME budget speech, it needs to rely on an elite that is not predatory. It needs capacity through a competent bureaucracy, and social groupings in business and labor need to be positively and negatively incentivized. A balance of power between the left and the right in the ANC stands in its way. It takes more than a hope and a prayer. The nettle has to be grasped.
Kachalia? Sorry, my apologies. Please take your seat, someone. What are you raising on, sir?
Raising on, is it Honorable Amper Mayor, Honorable Kachalia willing to take a question?
The computer says no.
Proceed.
The government refuses to understand the concept of fit for purpose, yet it continues to squash the square peg of race into the round hole of competence via self-defeating quotas and supports a public sector that is plagued by the vagaries of politics and patronage. This delivers a weak state, not a developmental state. Still, the state cannot be treated as an external agent of change. It needs to be treated as a problem in itself and also part of the solution. This sorry state cannot achieve this. What is required is economy and society to drive growth, high labor productivity, and a vibrant, empowered private sector capable of improving the life of all South Africans. Cooperation, innovation, experimentation, and flexibility is what is needed. It doesn't need the hidebound approach of the Communist Party and its allies. The key markers of failure are telling: a chronic public health sector and an equally bad primary education sector. The situation is just as bad when one looks at higher education and training, and crime is out of control. The country has low labor market efficiency, inflexible wage determination, severely restricting hiring and firing practices, and extremely low productivity. To make matters worse, there is little leverage in the NDP of those sectors and indicators in which South Africa has a significant advantage. The efficiency of corporate boards, the quality of management schools, market size, financial market development, availability of financial services, innovation advantages, an abundant mining sector, and the potential of agriculture. It is all very well to mouth platitudes about the fourth industrial revolution, while aiming to create 11 million plus jobs by 2030, while we sit at 10 million plus unemployed in a shrinking economy on a ship chartered by a stolid and ossified plan, while a Department of Planning straight out of Gosplan in 1950 Moscow steers the ship to nirvana. What we need is not 100 black industrialists, but a more practical commitment to the massive gains in human capital and skills. As Marius Oosthuizen of Gibbs has pointed out, what we need is the expropriation of ignorance and concomitant compensation. There is no nirvana on the horizon. Dystopia looms in this dark dawn. Remember the Steelers' wheel song? I got the feeling that something ain't right. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. And that precisely, Mr. President, is where we do not want to be. The President would be wise to listen to the words of the great Roman poet Horace, who wrote, "Begin, be bold, and venture to be wise. If he needs help, he knows where to come." Soos die digter, die beroemde Afrikaans digter, Breiten Breitenbach gesê het, ek hou van 'n man wat sy man kan staan. Kom, meneer President, kom.
Honorable Dromo.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable President, Honorable Deputy President, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members of Parliament and the guests, we hold this debate a day before we celebrate the birthday of our great leader, Tata Nelson Mandela. We arrived on Robben Island in 1987 when President Nelson Mandela had been taken to Victor Verster, but nevertheless we found great leaders there. Comrade Govan Mbeki, Comrade Wilton Kwai, Comrade Harry Gwala, Comrade Elias Mswaledi, and many more other leaders. They received us and enacted us on the new terrain of our struggle, how to navigate life as political prisoners. We learned a lot from these leaders. We came to realize that while some of us were relatively well educated, the wisdom of our parents, our leaders, by far surpassed our understanding. Such a situation has assisted us to shape our behavior going forward. That indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili. Honorable President, we thank you on behalf of the Ndwalane family in Lamontville. Our MK veteran, Baba Amos Ndwalane, was arrested and sentenced in 1983, sentenced to death for the struggles that he was part of. When the ANC was unbanned in 1990, his appeal was therefore, he was having a matter on appeal, and then it fell apart. We thank you, Honorable President, for offering that family and all our struggle veterans a special provincial funeral to that family and our leaders. Over the past week and this week, budget votes of departments presented by honorable ministers have indeed completed the picture that was painted by the State of the Nation address by our President. This budget, vote 1, will enable the presidency to deepen policy principles not only in South Africa, but in Africa and internationally. When South Africa transitioned from isolation of apartheid to an open and sound democratic dispensation in 1994, the new constitution became the overall compass that dictates its participation in the global community. Former President Nelson Mandela realized that South Africa was inextricably part of Southern Africa, and its destiny was linked to that of a region which was and is much more than just a geographic concept. His presidency was on policy principles of promoting of human rights, promotion of democracy, commitment to international law, maintaining relations between countries in the international system, commitment to maintaining mechanisms to promote peace within international system, commitment to propounding the interests of the African continent at the world stage. All these, Honorable President, Deputy Speaker, we have heard as being deepened by our various ministers, and just this morning listening to a budget vote of Minister of Defense and military veterans, these were actually much more emphasized. At the dawn of our democracy, our government formulated a strategic foreign policy plan that encapsulated South Africa's values that extended beyond its borders. The country's vision of building a united, non-racial, non-sexist and prosperous South Africa was also relevant to the vision of Africa. Accordingly, South Africa undertook numerous peacekeeping and human rights interventions in Africa. In addition, it also participated greatly and contributed to the establishment of various African political and economic institutions. We are aware that South Africa's global participation will be judged at both regional and continental contexts. South Africa faces further challenges because of its promoting democracy and human rights to some leaders who may not be comfortable with such concepts. The NDP, which is the vision of our country, has been based on socio-economic development and fosters strong international ties. It reinforces integrated world, thereby stating commitment to creating a better South Africa, a better Africa, and a better world of government. The NEPAD, our country pioneered, our government pioneered the establishment of NEPAD, which is an AU strategic framework for Pan-African socio-economic development. NEPAD provides unique opportunities for African countries to take full control of their development agenda, to work more closely together and to cooperate more effectively with international partners. NEPAD manages a number of programs, among others, agriculture and food security, climate change, regional integration and infrastructure, human development. In addition, South Africa plans to promote good governance systems through the African peer review mechanisms. South Africa has been one of the first group of countries that signed the African Continent Free Trade Area Agreement with the African Union. This agreement is meant to improve intra-regional trade and increase more complex levels of production amongst African countries. This agreement was preceded by the Kigali Protocol signed by our President, indicating South Africa's commitment to signing the trade agreement. South Africa has played a pivotal role in the journey of OAU transitioning to AU. Furthermore, South Africa continues to support the African Union Peace Fund and other efforts of AU Peace and Security Council in pursuit of lasting peace on the continent. South Africa has not only preached about peace and security, but actively and financially served the AU Peace and Security Council for 2 consecutive terms, from April the 1st, 2014 to 31st of April 2018. The African Union Agenda 2016, under the theme, The Africa We Want, seeks to chart a new development trajectory for Africa towards self-determination, freedom, progress, and collective prosperity. The first 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063 identifies key outcomes by 2023. Flagship programs seek to place the continent on a developmental path that achieves the following key deliverables: improving railway connectivity, improving road infrastructure, investing in a well-developed information and communication technology, ICT. We would not really go too much and indicate what our president actually has done on BRICS, except to mention that that President chaired the 10th BRICS Summit at Sandton in Johannesburg last year. Our contribution on IPSA is well documented. South Africa assumed the chair of the Indian Ocean Rim Association from October 2017 until 2019. South Africa participates in regular sessions of the United Nations General Assembly. In the recent session, South Africa promoted multilateralism and lobbied member states for stronger coordination between AU and United Nations, especially in the resolution of conflicts in Africa. Candidature for a non-permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council for the period 2019 to 2020, for which South Africa has successfully won. Premise and centrality of the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development and the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Our contributions on Commonwealth, South Africa recognizes Commonwealth as a strategic partner for political, social, and economic emancipation. Our contribution on the non-aligned movement, with its 220 member states, is the largest political grouping of countries outside the UN, making it an important lobby group of developing countries in global affairs. South Africa, as a member of G20, meets periodically other countries to discuss global economic policy coordination. The G20 was conceptualized to stabilize and strengthen the global economy by bringing together the major advanced and emerging market economies. South Africa participates in the G20 is aimed at advancing the national agenda to create a better South Africa and contribute to a better and a safe Africa and a better world. In the recent State of the Nation address, our president noted that attracting foreign direct investment would be a key driver of economic growth. This is particularly relevant in terms of presidency interfacing with the international community in issues of economic diplomacy. In terms of South Africa's investment drive, the president noted, and I quote, "The levels of growth that we need to make significant gains in jobs will not be possible without massive new investment," close quote. The responsibility, however, of attracting direct foreign investment is not a task of our president and the executive alone. all of us, honorable members of parliament, go on study tours, and we can play a critical role there in boosting investor confidence wherever we are. We become ambassadors of our country in such tours. It may not come as a surprise if Honorable Maimane, after his parliamentary duties, were to be deployed as an ambassador in Argentina. He will become the first port of contact for our president when visiting Argentina. Now, so those things are very important that we need to work on such progress. The Minister on Tourism raised very important and fundamental point that tourism is an integral part of South Africa's strategy for growing the economy. Attracting tourism also forms part of South Africa's international relations through its bilateral relations, thus making it very relevant to South Africa's foreign policy. Therefore, all of us do have a potential to contribute to tourists becoming interested to our country and wanting to come to our country. We were positively surprised and humbled when opposition parties praised our President Nelson Mandela and called him our president. We were happy to hear that. And we are therefore saying it is possible, because he too stood on these podiums, not as an angel, and sometimes he differed with some of the opposition parties, but nevertheless they were able to transcend and find him as a president of our country. We would want therefore to say, isn't it time for all of us to say, Honorable Matamela, you are our president. Even if we are in opposition, even if we are on opposition, there are certain things we might differ with you there. But whatever makes us common, whatever we have as South Africans, is much bigger than what divides all of us. We have a hard-working president, and we need to give him a space. Lastly, this president has charged some of his departments, and I cannot not close with this part because it is also some of the things that I was very familiar with, that it is this country that when there was an outbreak of Ebola in Sierra Leone, we were the first one to go there. Many other countries did come to support, but that South Africa was the first one to do that is actually remarkable. We also were the first country to go to Africa when there was an outbreak of listeriosis. And therefore, we have actually been the hub of creating that confidence in Africa. And we think we need to do that continuously. We can only do that when we say, as South Africans, we continue wanting to be the ambassadors of our country wherever we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Honorable Delil.
Chairperson, Honorable President, Honorable Deputy President. Mr. President, among the many expectations that Africans have piled on your plate, besides fixing governance and fixing our economy, are the reprioritization of nation building and social cohesion, for the resurrection of a collective hope for our country. There are good women and men to be found in our cities, in our towns, and in our villages across our land who want to contribute to fixing South Africa. But their words and deeds and reasonable aspirations are often drowned out by the tide of negativity that is staining the fabric of our nation. Some people in this house thrive on behaving like self-appointed classroom monitors whose primary role is to whip up fear and uncertainty. They too should accept responsibility of putting their shoulders to the wheel on behalf of all of us. When we established good a few months before the elections, we included in our finding document Edward Burke's 18th century truism. And I quote, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men and women to do nothing," close quote. The presidency budget's vote include an allocation for nation building and social cohesion. My plea, Mr. President, is that you use this allocation optimally to develop practical programs led by people of the highest integrity, aimed at rebuilding self-esteem and mutual respect, to create the space for good people to do something. Let's do this in honor of our fallen legend, Johnny Clegg, a nation-building pathfinder, and all other South Africans, heroes and heroines who contributed to the democracy we dare not take for granted today. Good, support the budget vote. Thank you.
Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, President, Deputy President, honorable members in the House and members of the gallery. The National Freedom Party will support the report and budget vote 1 tabled here today. Now, Mr. President, you highlighted a whole list of priorities that you believe can take South Africa forward in the next 10 years. But I want to say to you, Mr. President, why you're not going to be able to achieve this, unless, of course, stringent measures are put in place. You know, we need to do what Singapore did. Singapore was a third world country and became a first world country. And they did one thing. They made sure that anybody they employed were people that had the capacity and capability to do the job. They belonged to any organization. The second thing they did is, thank you. The second thing they did is, in terms of corruption, they took the highest level that was corrupt and put him behind bars. And that's what we need to do, and we need to start in this House, because there are some members in this House that have unduly benefited through corruption, like the VBS Bank, and you know what the Commission said, clearly they benefited. So we need to start with that, because corruption, any form of corruption with anyone is not acceptable. And maybe we need to go one step further, Mr. President, when we talk about corruption. And that is, maybe we should look at the Electoral Act again. Any political party that unduly benefits out of corruption must be deregistered as well. Maybe we need to look at that, because if you are serious about corruption, then basically that is one of the things we need to do. But Mr. President, we talk about jobs. My concern is that while you talk about 2 million jobs in 10 years, we must not forget that there's 5 million people entering the job in 10 years. It's about 500,000. But let me tell you one of my challenges and concerns that I have. Over 200 billion rand is lost, and I think Minister of Finance agrees with me, is lost because you don't get value for money from local level, right to the ground. Take that, take your 240 billion, which is your interest on your debt, take away 600 billion on compensation to employees, it's only the crumbs you got left for the rest of the people. So we need to look at that 200 billion rand, how we're going to try and save, starting from the local level. But my problem is, unless there's consequence management, and that's the most important thing, because it's the very same people have been failing us year in and year out. Changing the ministers and deputy ministers are not the problem, not the solution. Because the people on the ground and there are in these structures are not performing. So we need to deal with them if we want to put our house in order. The National Freedom Party supports the report tabled. Time is of essence.
Honorable, the Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disability.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, Your Excellency, President and Deputy President, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament, guests, Basadi, Maswara Tipaga Bagaling, wherever you are, because it takes a village to raise a child. Where there is calamity, if you have a woman, people feel safe. Let me take this opportunity to also condole those who have been slaughtered, majority women in this province, under the watch of a government, slaughtered. But President, we thank you because the slaughter will stop.
Yes, Honorable Minister, just hold on.
House Chairperson, every member of this House took an oath of office to uphold the law of the Republic. I think it is wrong for a minister to stand here and say that she condones the slaughter of people in a province. I think she should be forced to withdraw that.
No, that's English, man. She doesn't mean that. She doesn't mean that.
Well,
there's no way they mean. No, Honorable.
My time.
I have a very good answer, but I'll not give it to you now. Minister, please respond to that.
When I say we condole those families who have lost their loved ones through this madness of slaughtering of innocent people in this province that is supposed to be caring. That's what I said. So, condole, console, words of condolences, condole, console. You cannot tell me when I should speak my mother tongue because you can't speak my mother tongue. Ibile awona lemile lengwe le le tsebang kantle le lona leo o le rutuleng ke bo master bao. President, Your Excellency, as Ministry of Women, people living with disabilities and youth, our focus is on intersectionality because women intersectionality of those markers that continue to oppress women even as we sit in this august house. Youth and persons with disabilities are often disadvantaged by these multiple sources of oppression, race, class, gender, sexual identity, and other identity markers. And these markers intersect to create complicated layers of oppression. We want to thank you, Mr. President, for declaring once again today that you will run a coherent and cohesive government that will put to an end these markers that makes it impossible for us to move on as you want. For us to kauleza is when we bury these markers. Therefore, we will ensure that this implementation of all the policies that you had put as a priority also include LGBTQI plus community people to benefit from the fruits of democracy. For the first time since 1994, we have achieved a cabinet, through you, Mr. President, 50% cabinet ministers, a milestone that has placed this country amongst only but 11 countries in the world. However, as far as Parliament is concerned, South Africa is falling a bit lower because of these honorable members on my left, because they really can see women leading. They see male, and they will not feel that the need to bring more capable women who come from their own to come right here and lead. When you ask, they will always be giving an example of, yeah, Rwanda has achieved this and has achieved that because there's cohesion, because they do things right. They are, now we look also, the bad example you give to private sector, that it's okay to ignore leadership and women. 50-50 representation in the private sector is as good as it is in government, but equally good in those who are DGs, DDGs, and so on. Because if we don't do that, if we do not have our people and affirm the 52% plus of our population, we will not be living up to our NDG and comply to our commitment to the SDG targets. The Commission for Employment Equity found out that even though government does not discriminate with regards to pay, men still get paid more than women as they are paid, or as they enter at the entry level. They're already at the highest notch, while women get through entry level positions, even if they qualify to get what their male counterparts get. Youth unemployment is a challenge. It's a challenge. It's a historical challenge. Each because as hard as our president and the leadership tries to cut this historical challenge, private sector needs to come to the party. Private sector needs to work with us and also with small business to make sure, and DTI, to make sure that where they have or they appoint boards, the boards are also gender sensitive. The President, let's congratulate you, Your Excellency, for pronouncing once again that this year that job seekers will no longer need work experience at entry level. We are appealing to colleagues and to all other members that let's support the National Youth Service and let's take more young people into the National Youth Service and support this initiative as the NYDA has done. This will galvanize the private sector, which should also come to the party and support in partnership that which is a very good initiative. Deputy Speaker, we are going to work with public service to make sure that all that which President has committed us to works. In the State of the Nation address again, you spoke, Mr. President, of social cohesion and safe communities. What we see in some areas in this province and gender-based violence says, let us start with making our families do what families do best. That is, take care of that which you groom. Tuli must not feel terrified to come to Parliament. She must feel safe because the neighborhood where she lives, the neighborhood in Philippines, children can go to school freely without fearing if they were going to get back home alive. We will ensure that departments ring-fence their budget for gender-based violence and femicide, and that the gender-based council is in track and in place for fast-tracking the implementation of programs at community-based level. Further, we will ensure that we have government-funded Tutuzela centers and shelters. We will not achieve this if we do not have a dedicated GBVF budget. Gender mainstreaming is our priority for all of us. In this regard, we are going to enforce gender-responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring, and evaluation framework approved by Cabinet on the 27th March 2019. We will also expand this framework to youth and persons with disabilities. To implement the gender mainstreaming and budgeting framework, we're going to work to enforce 30% of procurement to be dedicated to these sectors. We will discuss with the Auditor General further to make sure that all of us, all departments, adhere to this, and that they will also be monitored if they do not adhere to that. We will report on performance of government and private sector's transformation on gender equality, which is a constitutional mandate. Tomorrow, as we remember Madiba, we should not do that as hypocrisy. It should be that we remember him, that he had said he has never been a saint. Maybe we should refer to him as a sinner who always tried harder to reach out to the other people. I say this remembering that which you have said, Minister in the Presidency, about Mrs. Stofile. As you started mentioning names, it could have been any other woman at that time who turned, or mothers who turned their own homes into safe houses for those who fought for freedom. Some are still alive. I know that the Minister of Finance will remember Tom Flatella and Stombe. They are still alive in Davidson, and they fall in that category. Social partners are here, and they keep the communities safe. Even when it gets hot, they stay there. If we really want to see economic transformation and empowerment, we need these groups and ensure that when we say we are reaching out on women on production of sanitary products, which is a multi-billion rand industry, it should benefit the users. This is not justifiable that women are just consumers, but they can, and we can, or they can be assisted through cooperatives. Therefore, we advocate for women cooperatives that should also become manufacturers and owners of that which is about them. Nothing about them without them. Madam, Speaker, still on the chair. President spoke at length on issues of eradication of poverty. I say we support this because poverty always bears a feminine face. Therefore, we will all have to prioritize economic programs that seek to redress this imbalance. Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation spoke of the review that has been done in the past 25 years. Let us move with the women of this country. As we move to tell a different story for women, youth, and persons with disabilities for the next coming 25 years. For Madiba said, it always seems impossible until it is done. Because we are not visitors. We are not about going somewhere else to study on how we should take care of our communities, but we are shoulders on the wheel, working with our communities as we will be doing tomorrow in the name of Madiba in Philippi. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Gallo.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, Honorable President, Honorable Deputy President. The President's Budget Vote 1 follows a number of priorities President Ramaphosa outlined in his State of the Nation address.
in particular the priorities that falls under his wing. The medium-term strategic framework enjoins the work of the presidency. It envisions a social compact that will lay the basis for equity, inclusion, and prosperity for all. As a custodian of our national blueprint, the President pronounced in his SONA address that a comprehensive plan driven and coordinated from the Presidency will spearhead a process by which no fewer than 2 million new jobs for young people within the next decade are created. These bold commitments may have been informed by the diagnostic report which was commissioned by the National Planning Commission. The relevant part of the report identifies the priority areas to bolster economic growth. According to the report, these include improving the performance of the public service and raising the standard of service delivery, reducing corruption, addressing the legacy of apartheid spatial divisions, and bridging deeply rooted social divisions. Deputy Speaker, the creation of 11 million jobs as envisaged by the National Development Plan by 2030 is not consistent with the targets pronounced by the President of creating no fewer than 2 million new jobs within the next decade. When I close, Honorable President, I was checking here the minister in the presidency. I wanted to urge him to also adopt the family of Mamukhesha, Megikhesha, Ematatiela. Aphinde futhi adopte ifamily kaDumisani Mathandela, Ematatiela. The AIC supports this report.
Honorable Muela.
Sekela somlomo, mhlonishwa mongameli, sekela mongameli, bahlonishwa bonke labakhona lebalida amatiko nemasekela abo, bonke bahlonishwa labakhona la, divakashi, nemalunga wonke South Africa siyabingelela. A day from now, the world will observe the National Mandela Day, which is a global call to action that celebrates the idea that each individual has the power to transform the world. This is done in honor of the distinguished service by our struggle stalwart and global icon, the founding father of the democratic South Africa, Ubaba Nelson Mandela, who lived and died promoting freedom, human rights, peace, and democracy in the world. Indeed, we are inspired by his word when he said that, and I quote, "Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished," and close quote. Honorable President, on the 20th of June, you stood before this August House to address the South African nation on the State of the Nation address. You were very clear that we are faced with distinct choices, which is whether we continue as if everything is normal, or we dream big and imagine a different South Africa that reflects our hopes and aspirations. It is no longer a matter of debate or for debate that our economy is struggling. It is no longer a debate that millions of young people are struggling to find jobs. Statistics may sometimes be scary, but the future we imagine does hold a promise and a better tomorrow. No matter our political persuasion, no matter our political differences, the state of our nation is that the democratic government, broadly led by the ANC, has made tremendous progress over the last 25 years. This democratic government has opened opportunities for access to education. It has provided decent shelter, sanitation, road and pathways to our people. It has ensured access to equitable primary health care and reduction in maternal and infant mortality. It has ensured access to clean and potable water. This is the government that has ensured that the basic national minimum wage is passed across all sectors of employment. Despite all these strides, the challenge of unemployment, poverty, inequality remains glaring in our eyes. It is part of this as a result of global economic decline that was experienced towards the end of the last decade. The other part is due to our structural economic order that is driven by monopoly capital and further entrenched by our slow domestic investment. These global challenges have a bearing on our country and indeed our continent developmental trajectory. Honorable Deputy Speaker, as a representative of our people, we can debate as we should, but we must reach conclusion to any of our debates. We must take collective action that respond to the prevailing challenges of our country for the betterment of the lives of all South Africans, especially the poor, who in the majority are the black youth. We have no doubt that our young people crave for opportunities. The opportunities crave for are the ones that will change the socio-economic conditions, which have been infected to them by their environment and given families' condition. Honorable President, they want to change the social construct that keeps them trapped in conditions of poverty and unemployment. They look to their government and to their existing private sector to enable them to navigate this hard condition by seizing availability or available opportunities that will free them from their shackles that were imposed by their past. In this regard, we welcome the decision, Honorable President, the decision by the ANC, that groundbreaking announcement by the President to scrap the experience requirement for young people seeking to enter job market. Siyokhumbula sonke eSouth Africa ukuthi bantu labasha ngembi kokuba bathole obangene emsebenzini bekufanele babe neexperience. Siyabonga mongameli ukuthi usivile sikhalo sebantu labasha ukuthi iexperience angeke bayithola bangakangenanga emsebenzini ngaloko kwascrapwa iexperience ukuthi sithole ama opportunities. Our words and action must tell the story of South Africans who embody and live the Pan-Africanist vision and developmental program of Africa as expressed in the Continental 2063 agenda. As this House, as this executive, we must recommit ourselves to the call of all African revolutionaries that came before us and those who dedicated their lives to the vision of the better South Africa and a better South Africa, a better Africa, and a better world. As honorable members, let us seize the day and recommit ourselves to honest, selfless service for the benefit of all our people, especially the poor and the downtrodden among us who are still yet to experience the benefit of freedom and democracy. We must also take note that our people seek a new political of hope where they can once again trust the art of politics. This is the vision that the President articulated in his reply to the State of the Nation address on the 20th of January to February this year, in its vision reminding all of us that, and I quote, Honorable President, that the most important people in our country are not those who walk in red carpet in Parliament, but those who spend their night on their benches outside its gate, and close quote. The President went on to remind us that the most important South Africans must, and I quote, Those who have been looking for work their entire adult lives, who have had to drop out of school, who are suffering from preventable diseases, who have been orphaned or abandoned, who rely on the old age pension to feed their families, who don't have seed or to implement to work their small piece of land and close quote. We all know that these are South Africans who are less interested in our political bickering, divisions, and slogans. They yearn for our deserve and government whose only preoccupation is the development and advancement of its people. They yearn, Honorable President, for the public service to understand its developmental mandate, its developmental mandate. They've become impatient with those minority public servants who are out to step with our constitution and the expectation of our people have those they elected into office. We cannot build a full capability of our people equally create decent work without creating a disciplined and committed cadre professional and ethical public servant who are driven by the constitution imperative and of transformation. Honorable Deputy Speaker and Honorable President, your visionary leadership is elevating the issues of women, youth, and people with disability and place it at the apex of the state is commendable. Through this ministry, let us work together with our social partners to keep girl children in school, prevent teenage pregnancy, fight against issues of HIV and AIDS, to create and expose our young women to economic and job opportunities. Let us ensure that our youth, especially those who are in employment, not in education, and not in training, are prioritized to respond to the prevailing challenges of unemployment we are faced with. We need more companies to partner with our TVET colleges and universities to bridge the gap between the lecture hall by ensuring that children from poor families access education through the no-fee school and free higher education. And we call all business to play its part, as well as by giving experiential learning and internship to enhance the practical experience for our students. This year, honorable members, marks 40 years of the death of Solomon Nikalushi Mahlangu, who this day is an inspiration to the youth of our country. And in celebrating his life, we wish to express our gratitude to the National Youth Development Agency for coming up with the National Youth Solomon Mahlangu Fund. This fund covers a various field of study relating to the critical skills, and we welcome the focus on supporting undergraduate students from rural areas. To this day, the program has produced about 700 graduates, and the 700 graduates, Honorable President and Honorable Members, ifaka phakathi 2 yama pilot, 2 yama pilot which are female for that matter, has 22 engineers, 18 doctors, and 10 pharmacists, and lastly, it also includes 5 geologists among all of its achievements. Our government, Honorable President, it is not true that our government is not delivering. Our government that is led by the ANC, here deliver. That is why today we stand tall and we walk tall to say this is the only government that can change the lives of our people. The only hope for our people is the African National Congress. There is no any other organization other than the African National Congress that can change and liberate the lives of our people. That is why it is important to also lecture some of our honorable members here that the National Youth Development Agency is not a political party, but it is an agency of all young people, of all the youth of South Africa. That is why the National Youth Development Agency, honorable members, the board of the Youth Development Agency, ifaka wonke umuntu lokhona eSouth Africa, ayifakanga abantu be-ANC or former leaders of the ANC Youth League. It is an incorrect statement. The majority of our people, Honorable President, need the land for sustainable livelihood and economic well-being. They do so for the access of land for the use of agriculture, human settlement, and for the access of economic development that will guarantee them an alternative to the current status quo. Kubalulekile ke ngaloko mongameli ukuthi sithole umhlaba sibantu labasha kude kuthi sikhone kuwenda sicreate imisebenzi bantu labasha base South Africa bakhone kuthola umsebenzi bakhone ukutiyendela umsebenzi wetandla ngobe singathola lo mhlaba siyokhona ukuthi siusebenzise ngendlela lefanelekile. Siyayimukela ke futhi mongameli ukuthi unikete usekela mongameli umsebenzi wokuthi ayibuke lenzaba yokuthi umhlaba uya njani ebantwini kude kuthi bantu base South Africa bakhone ukuthi umnotho wabo bakhone kubenefita kulomnotho wa South Africa. Ngaloko ke siyakusupporta mongameli, siyayisupporta ibudget vote 1, siyohlala siyisupporta. Siyabonga.
Ndadelo God. Kwa mnye Randall.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, Honorable President and Honorable Deputy President. May we add our voice to that of the President in paying tribute to President Mandela and the other leaders of the society, and add as well our sadness at the loss of some of the outstanding personalities in our society in the last 2 days, in the last week, and so on. Mr. President, we had hoped that you might, because you are the only person with the authority to deploy the armed forces, that you might take us into confidence as to why it has become necessary at this point for our country to deploy the armed forces in society. The reason for this is because you may have information which has not been indicated to us across the nation. This style of applying force to control society we have inherited from the old order of apartheid. When they did not know how to control us, they put the police in, which was a police force and not a police service. When the police service failed, they added the armed forces. And they killed a lot of innocent people, and we know why they failed. Because they did not know where to find the freedom fighters. Because the people who understood that they were being forced to obey the laws of a government they had not elected would not tell them where the freedom fighters are, who is doing what. They knew that. When we came to power, we now, all of us, vote. Why do we take armed forces and send them into our communities? Are we at war with our communities as well or not? We do not think we can run this society in the same way that the apartheid government, which was not elected by us, was running issues. There must be a way. Who are the people who are doing crime there? Because the reason we have a police service is that the police service must have information, must be able to arrest the criminals. And even they are not allowed to kill the criminals. They must arrest them. If they cannot arrest them, there must be a reason why they are not able to do so. But the answer cannot be to send the armed forces into society to shoot. Who are they going to shoot? If they don't know who they are going to shoot, they are going to shoot innocent people and all of that. This cannot be the right way to go.
Thank you. Honorable the Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disability, Honorable Mkhize.
Honorable Speaker and honorable members of Parliament, Honorable President, Honorable Deputy President, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow South Africans, siyanibingelela nonke emakhaya ngamakhaya. Honorable President, as South Africa commemorates 25 years of democracy, we cannot help but reflect on legacy-related challenges such as socio-economic inequality, gender-based violence, institutionalized patriarchy and its related ills, youth unemployment, and lack of economic inclusion for persons with disabilities. While the country seeks new ways of dealing with all problems, it's important that our implementation strategies and targets leapfrog the country to a future we've struggled for over decades of colonial rule and the apartheid regime. South Africa has adopted a policy that Honorable Maite spoke to of gender responsive planning and budgeting. It's a very, very important commitment that we've made as a country that in future, whenever we have a budget, we will make sure that the private sector on all segments of society will be aligned in dealing with inequality from planning stages, budget management, and implementation processes. Honorable President, the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities, it really offers this country unprecedented opportunities of tackling the issues that we have struggled with over a long period of time. The National Development Plan, Vision 2030, is aligned to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Already the statistics from the State South Africa report released on the 15th of July this year, it is stated that approximately 74% of the Sustainable Development Goals are addressed through the National Development Plan, which basically say we have a plan, we have action lines that are measurable and can be monitored, which are able to take us forward. If you look at Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 1 to 5, it talks to the issues that fall under the mandate of the Ministry of the Department on Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. Goal 1, it talks to ending poverty in all its form. 2, end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable development. I think under Goal 2, many of the speakers, Honorable President, have really expressed themselves unambiguously about the agency of access to land and ensuring that our people have access to land, and that is seen as a tool for taking them out of poverty. We also, Goal 3 talks to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being at all stages. Goal 4, ensure inclusive and equitable education. Goal 5, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. The department's mandate gives us an opportunity to tackle gender equality, youth unemployment, and empower persons with disability in an integrated, coordinated fashion. We are not where we were yesterday. In the past, we've done these things in silos, but taking everything that has been done in this country, adopting the SDGs, we're able now to look at our priorities and work in an integrated fashion. We have identified during our budget vote the 7 priorities, that the key priorities that were mentioned by the President. But for the purpose of this, I will just talk to 3 priorities that are important in talking to the core mandate of the department. Economic transformation and job creation. I'm not going to go to the statistics that show how women are disempowered, but we are taking the struggle of gender inequality forward. We are already in discussion with the Department of Trade and Industry to look at incentives and see how a certain percentage of incentive could be earmarked towards the inclusion of youth and persons with disabilities, including women. And there's a huge commitment to work with us and set clear targets and achieve our goals. At this point in time, I think what's important, we all have to come to terms with it's a grand plan, it's concrete, it's measurable. And we should be able to take the country forward. It's not rhetorics, we're not talking about what is ideal, but we're talking about what is budgeted for. On the question of persons with disabilities, Honorable President, there are pockets of success, like in some institutions, we see the use of technology that is really promoting inclusion and enable disabled learners and students to be competitive. But we do take into consideration, Honorable President, that you have warned us that with respect to employment, there has been disappointing progress when it comes to persons with disabilities. We commend the President for putting together the working group on disability, and we look forward to cooperating and cooperating with them. We already have a few young people who have shown the world that being disabled, it doesn't mean that you are intellectually limited. During our budget vote, we invited people like Edindo, a South African activist and humanitarian, who is said to be the first person with a disability to board a commercial flight into space and deliver an address to the UN. There are many that I can refer to. On the question of education, skills, and health, I want to touch the value. Of course, there has been mention of what we have achieved in terms of free education, but I want to touch on the fourth industrial revolution and say, Honorable President, there is cynicism sometimes of people not understanding that you cannot have digitize the country and make sure that we have school labs and all the things we've done, and not allow young people in particular to play around and innovate and begin to see benefits of artificial intelligence and begin to see benefits of big data and say now we can plan realistically, because in the District X we know how many people have these conditions, how many schools are there, and what is going on in those schools. So we really see the effort of the Fourth Industrial Revolution Commission and the summit that the President held recently in partnership with the Fourth Industrial Revolution South African Partnership, that South Africa is making history in playing a leadership role in such an important and unavoidable opportunity of our times. But also what we appreciated is when the President enlightened many people in terms of saying that these technologies, innovations, needs to be applied to specific service delivery nodes, like looking at health, utilities, crime prevention, education, transport, and others to ensure better service delivery. So the abundance of technology is no longer something which we are thinking whether it will happen. We appreciate the commitment is with us. And also we appreciate the efforts of the Department of Communications to really work closely. I think it was a command from the President that ICASA looks at reducing the price of data, which is sometimes a barrier to what young people want to do at a community level. Honorable President, with regard to the issues of education, youth skillings, and jobs, I must say the programs that the President have supported, building on what the NYDA has achieved, we should think strategically and support them, because it's for the first time that the private sector gets a clear vision from us and where we want them to be part of a social compact in terms of making real commitments as to how many young people can they place, what kind of skills will they acquire, what are placement opportunities or entrepreneurial opportunities. In the past, we've done certain things, but the private sector, being a private sector, they will find it difficult to see where do we fit in. And with these programs, Mr. President, I'm not going to describe them in details, I think it has really created an atmosphere where there's competition. Also, the commitment that was done in this country last year by letting at the highest level to have the Presidential Summit on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. Ngiyethemba lokho kubasizile abantu bakithi abaningi babe nethemba ukuthi lenkinga esibhekene nayo yokuhlukumezwa kwabantu besifazane siyakwazi ukuthi silwe naye siyinqobe. Even i-declaration esayiniwe emva kwalokho igcizelela zonke izinto ebeziyinkinga ukuthi kufanele sisebenze kanjani namaphoyisa nodokotela kanye nabo bonke abezomthetho ukuze umuntu angathi mayisebe kulenkinga abese ehlenyuka engatholi usizo ngoba akuhlanganiswa mhlambe amaphoyisa akhomba ngapha komantshi omanje bakhomba emaphoyiseni umphakathi ufuna ukushaya abaphethe isiteshi.
Honorable Minister, siphelile isikhathi sakho.
Thank you.
Honorable Nyonso.
Chairperson, Comrade President, Comrade Deputy President, we are extremely worried with the unregulated benefits of former presidents. As a matter of principle and the economic position we find ourselves in, it makes no sense to continue spending millions funding their lifestyles, especially former President de Klerk, who ordered the killing of school children in Umtata in 1993. As Pan-Africanists, we better understand the role we must play as a nation in the development and stability of the African continent, and further acknowledge that we are part of the global community. The PAC call for more investment to be directed to our work in Africa. Hence, we hereby congratulate you on signing the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. The work you do in Lesotho and other African countries. The problems in Zimbabwe are our problems. The problems in Swaziland, Mozambique, and across all corners of Africa, Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar, are our problems. In conclusion, the PAC calls for your office to review the cost we incur in United Nations activities must be used to intensify our continental work as a protest for participation in the Security Council. The PAC supports the budget.
Thank you. Honorable MGE Hendricks.
Honorable Chair, His Excellency, Al-Jamaa supports the budget. We are excited that South Africa has a fit-for-purpose presidency and the leadership of a Director General like Dr. Cassius Lubisi. Thank you, His Excellency, for sending the army to the 10 hotspots on the Cape Flats. I know every hotspot personally. All this to ensure the personal safety of our learners, the elderly, women, and our fathers. You also send some of your best ministers, the Minister of Police and the Minister of Defense. Those ministers will leave behind a legacy where they will be honored for ensuring the personal safety of all in the 10 hotspots. Please, Your Excellency, give the Honourable Minister the resources they need at least for the next 5 years as part of an exit strategy. I hope we can also count on the Leader of Parliament Business, the Honourable Deputy President, to assist us and hear the voices of the learners from the 10 hotspots. There is a solution to take out the violence of service delivery protests. Service delivery, His Excellency, is one of your priorities. You must insist on a quick fix dispute resolution unit that can be redeployed to hotspots at a minute's notice as suggested by the public protector. The 11th of August, His Excellency, is Eid al-Adha, the Hajj. President Mandela promised South Africa it will be a paid public holiday for all South Africans. Make it happen by taking the first steps on Mandela Day. Honorary President, you head up the anti-poverty program. Your expanded public works program has alleviated poverty to a noticeable extent. Take you to the next level by ensuring the jobs comply at least with the minimum standards of decent work which President Mandela committed the country to. I heard many honorable members praising President Mandela. This is appreciated, but much better is completing his unfinished business. Al-Jamaa supports the budget.
The Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Honorable Suwaya.
Every 30 seconds, a woman is violated on Twitter. Every second update on Facebook is about a missing child or a woman. Every young woman who's on social media stands a chance of being violated and stalked by drug lords. Young people who are unemployed, desperately seeking for networks to get a job, are likely to come across fake news which can lead them to being abducted, raped, and in most instances killed. Honorable Speaker, President, Deputy President, honorable members, good evening. This is the South Africa and the world we live in.
Point of order.
What's the point of order? Order, honorable members. What's the point of order?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The honorable member should greet us. We must salute people, say how are you, thank you, the people of South Africa.
Out of order and I'm sorry. Honorable.
Greet boss, you'll be fired.
As a government,
Yes, man, you are disturbing us.
failure to intervene in the media space and influence information without compromising journalistic values and principles will be tantamount to us not performing our duties. Amidst the pains we see amongst us, we have hope that things will change. By the end of this financial year, we shall have reached many young people in the country. We shall have engaged and discussed with them about how to react to social media bullies, stalkers, fake news, and all wrong social ills which are happening on social media. Our country is recognized as one of the most sophisticated, diverse, promising emerging markets in the world. It remains a strategic investment location, both for commercial opportunities within our borders, as well as a potential which it offers to the rest of the continent. In line with the call of the NDP to promote active citizenry, as well as President Ramaphosa's Tumamina campaign, Brand South Africa will intensify its domestic campaigns to support active citizenry and constitutional awareness as part of Outcome 14 deliverables. This will be done through integrated marketing campaigns promoting South Africa to South Africans through the NTT Play Your Part flagship program. Honorable members, much as we are concerned about our international image and reputation, we are equally concerned about access to information, especially in our communities. Through the MDDA, we will intensify our efforts to enhance media development, transformation, and diversification in South Africa. In the current financial year, MDDA will continue to render support to media outlets, particularly community media, to ensure that the Fourth Estate reports news that is factually accurate, objective, and fair to everyone. We focus our efforts particularly on community servicing disadvantaged communities, historically sidelined languages and cultural groups. In the grant funding program, we will continue to fund community broadcast and 4 community and small commercial media projects. For the first time as MDDA, we have funded a community disability print magazine which we will be visiting in the coming weeks. This we celebrate because it is a move in the right direction and it enhances our plans to diversify media in South Africa. The
MDDA went through a rough patch over the past 8 years, and the private sector has told us that had hampered them from coming on board to come and assist MDDA in reaching its objectives. Gladly, in the interactions that we have done and had with them, they have heard the call of the President that private sector ought to come together, work with government, and advance the goals of the NDP and the 9 key priorities which were stated in the State of the Nation address. Our important role is to deliver. We will fill all vacant posts which exist in Brand SA and MDDA within this financial year. The real test will be for us to deliver on our promises. This exercise of publicly committing ourselves will be followed by action. At no point do we want to come here and account on why we are not performing. We will come here with ideas on how we are succeeding. This we will do in honor of my comrade, whom I had come to serve with in my student days. Most of us called him chairman, for he was a provincial chairperson of SASCO in Gauteng at one stage. Moses Mtileni, you left us too soon. The likes of Floyd Shibambu, Velile Hlongwa, Mika Matlaule, and Fikile Masiko, who are members of this August House, are pained by your passing on. Ours will be to prioritize African languages and ensure our people receive news in their mother tongue. This we will do because we know you were passionate about it. We look forward to continuing with your love of reading and education. As for the rest, as you rest, please rest assured that South Africa is on a path, a progressive path which will unshackle our people from poverty. You and General Ike Mapoto have played your part. Amongst other things, General Ike Mapoto was known for paying school fees for young people, for he championed and promoted learning. This baton we will carry through. We will ensure your legacy and desire of a better South Africa becomes a reality. Etlelani kurul. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Malachi.
House Chairperson, to paraphrase from the book of Ecclesiastes, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. There is a time for campaigning and there is a season for governing. There is a time for making promises and there is a season for delivering services. Mr. President, you have made a lot of noise with a lot of promises. It was a promise to herald a new way of doing things, a different way from the horror of the 9 wasted years. You have serenaded this country into the misbelief that somehow chanting Tumamina will miraculously solve all the problems that South Africa faces because of the ANC. So much so that it has become a chorus sang the loudest by those who have been in power the longest, while millions of South Africans continue to suffer in poverty. The truth is that the ANC you lead, Mr. President, was sent 25 years ago to serve the people of South Africa. It was the very same ANC that promised a better life for all. While there is no doubt that life is better in South Africa now than it was under apartheid, there are many South Africans who are yet to fully enjoy the promise of a better life. Today, 3 million South Africans do not have access to reliable water, such as the people of Gomgom and Makasa village in Malamulele. There are currently 9 million South Africans living without access to electricity, like the people of Shitlakati extension in Guyana. Over 55% of young people in the country are currently unemployed without any prospect of finding a job in the immediate future. Now, Mr. President, as a self-confessed admirer of Theodore Roosevelt's The Man in the Arena quote, do you honestly believe that you are in the arena with honest men and women? Do you believe that all these men and women in your cabinet are worthy of saving South Africa? Look to your right, look to your left. Of course, you can look to your right and look behind you. Are all these men worthy of the honor of saving our country and leading it to prosperity? Contrary to the believers of the gospel of the new dawn, The problem with South Africa is not that the so-called good men and women in the ANC are overpowered by the bad guys. The problem is that the ANC is far too factional, beyond repair, to have any policy cohesion. Now, the President, you spoke about the fact that what happened in the Northwest wouldn't have happened. But if you were seriously not condoning what happened in the Northwest, the former failed Premier of the Northwest wouldn't be in this house. If you were serious about a new way of doing things, the former MEC of Health in KZN, who presided over the West Oncology crisis, wouldn't be here in this house.
Order. Yes, sir. What are you raising on?
I'm saying that the honorable member is casting aspersion on the former MEC of KwaZulu-Natal.
Proceed, honorable member.
Deputy Speaker, maybe you must define aspersions first.
No.
Take the mic.
Take your seat. You shouldn't be talking.
Can you give us a definition first?
Honorable Josie, you are out of order.
You are casting an aspersion. Define it first.
Take your seat.
Stop casting
Take your seat.
aspersion. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Define
honorable
it.
member. Just ignore that man there. He's out of order. Go ahead, honorable member.
On a point of order.
What's your point of order, honorable member?
The point of order is on you. Who are you saying ignore
Honorable
that man?
member.
Who's man here?
Honorable member.
Who is man here? There's no man here. There's an honorable Dr. Ndlozi here.
Honorable member, please take your seat.
You have started.
On behalf of Honorable
started.
Dr. Ndlozi. Take your seat. You must still take your seat. Go ahead, honorable member. And order goes a long way. It's very free. It's not cheap. It's available to all of us. If you exercise it, there's going to be a lot of fun after this meeting. Go ahead, honorable member.
Deputy Speaker, if those on the right had any respect to this house, they wouldn't be deploying all these failed leaders into this house as if we are in a rehabilitation center to rehabilitate unrepentant failures. Deputy Speaker, it is ironic that this administration has identified building a better Africa as one of its priorities. Yet it still rolls out red carpets to despots, dictators, and some of the most vicious human rights abusers on the continent. South Africa's foreign policy is now held hostage by old historical liberation associations rather than the pursuit of human rights that our constitution vows. It is now clear that there is no messiah, not even you, Mr. President, who can save the ANC out of the bondage of factional wars. What South Africans want is a government that works. They want a government that strives to do the right thing the right way all the time. And if truth be told, it is possible to achieve this. DA administrations from the Western Cape to Midvaal are testimonies that we are doing the right thing the right way. The Western Cape has the highest levels of access to piped water, electricity, and access to waste removal. The Western Cape has the highest life expectancy rate in the country because of the consistent efforts we made to invest in public health. 14 out of the 20 best governed municipalities in the country are led by the DA. All of this is evidence that South Africans are most likely to get a job, to live longer, to have value for their rates by getting uninterrupted water, access, and electricity when they live under a DA government. DA governments, unlike yours, don't steal money from taxpayers. We don't waste money on junkets and executive luxuries to feed the inflated egos of politicians. Every cent is geared towards making a better life for those that we serve. Because many people understand that governing can be hard. they understand that sometimes service delivery can take time. What is inexcusable though?
Deputy Speaker.
Yes.
I'm here.
Yes. What are you rising on?
The honorable member is lying. They have a 5 billion irregular
Honorable member. Honorable member, please take your
They are not governing well everywhere.
Honorable member, keep quiet.
They've got a 5 billion
Honorable member. Please stand up there. Stand up there. Stand up. You withdraw saying a member lied. Do that now, please. You can't say that. Honorable member,
no, I withdraw.
You are out of order.
He's telling
you are out of order. You mustn't be screaming. Please don't provoke me. Don't provoke me. Kindly withdraw saying a member is lying. We don't speak like this in this house.
Deputy Speaker.
Yes?
Deputy Speaker, I withdraw. He's being economical with the truth.
Unconditionally. Unconditionally. Don't make conditional apologies. Members, please read the rules. Read the rules and don't speak as if you are not in the house. There's an agreed way of speaking here. You are really not in order. Proceed, honorable member. Go ahead. No matter how strongly you feel, play by the rules. If you don't play by the rules, we'll throw you out. There's no question about it. Whoever you are in the house. No. Go ahead, honorable member. No. Don't worry about the clock, honorable member. That clock is in order. Proceed. You even want to quarrel with the clock now.
Deputy Speaker, I have no problems with the clock. Mr. President, it matters not where your solutions come from. As long as they are the right ideas to make our country succeed, use them. You might not like the fact that they are DA solutions, but if they improve the quality of life of South Africans, use them, because the public cares not where solutions come from. They want to see the quality of life improve. One of the most noticeable developments from the reconfiguration of government departments was the repositioning of state entities into the presidency. It is now clear more than ever before that the presidency is building a massive spin and PR machine to polish its propaganda. Nothing illustrates this, Honorable Mutembu, than the congregation of government communications and information systems, Brand South Africa, and the Media and Development Agency under the presidency, under your watch as the new government super spin doctor. We will be watching very carefully how these entities, who, by the way, are all led by acting CEOs, some of them don't even have boards that courage, execute their mandates, so that we can ensure that there is no manipulation of information and the use of unethical practices. Mr. President, if you are serious about not being afraid to promote accountability and transparency, then start by publishing all the performance agreements that you will sign with members of your executive. Let the public trace the performance of ministers against their targets so that we can track those who are non-performers and sleep on their job. Compel all ministers and their deputy ministers to comply with the financial disclosures so that none of them can continue to do business with the state. Institute lifestyle audits for all cabinet members and all boards of state entities to eliminate conflict of interest. And Honorable Mashabane, you know, it's very embarrassing when someone hides behind the agenda to conceal criticism of their incompetence. If you have any defense about your record, bring evidence. Don't hide behind sexism, because what you do is to cheapen the struggles of feminists who fight for gender equality. Mr. President, all of the interventions we have highlighted to you can be executed immediately. They don't need a summit or consultation with your boss, as you said, Mr. Ace Mahashule. All they need is decisive action, because now, as the vet said, is the time and season to act. I thank you.
Honorable Monji Kongubele.
Honorable President, Mr. Deputy President, Deputy Speaker, members of the House at large. Mr. President, you can realize that before I read what I consider as my prepared speech, you can realize that the crisis we have is that we are being interrupted as we report to the nation. There are people who are trying to make themselves the point of focus. And I'm happy that you have been able to ignore that. The honorable member here is worried about consolidation of communication. In terms of the principles of governance, one of the characteristics of good governance is communication and transparency. Instead of commenting what the minister is doing, he's worried about it. The president says by September, reports, agreements are going to be signed. This honorable member is worried about that. So you can understand the problem we are dealing with. But let me go through my speech very quickly. I was asked to deal with the facilitation of integrated governance. I thought, Mr. President, as a leader in the drafting of the constitution of this country, it's important to premise the significance of integrated governance within the Constitution. Our Constitution directs us to build a single and a functional nation, which find expression in Section 146 and 150, where they articulate dealing with conflicts between the spheres. Section 40 states that the institutional anatomy of the Republic, not of the province, is based on the national, provincial, and local spheres of government, which are distinctive, interdependent, and interrelated. Subsection 1 of Section 40 says that all spheres of government and all organs of the state within each sphere, let me repeat this, all spheres of government and all organs of the state within each sphere must do the following: preserve the peace, the national unity, and the indivisibility of the Republic. Secure the well-being of the people of the Republic. Provide effectiveness, transparent, accountable, and coherence for the Republic as a whole in each sphere. In other words, every sphere within itself, it is about the Republic. You have heard people saying, we in the Western Cape, we in that. But the Constitution says within each sphere, every activity is about the Republic. Paragraph H in Section 41, subsection 1 further directs these spheres on how to cooperate in mutual trust and good faith, including the directives in subsection 2 of informing one another on all the initiatives in various spheres. Therefore, the question, Mr. President, is what are the key factors for the success of an integrated governance? Consistency, coherence, predictability, which constitute the only key guarantee for South Africans in their respective locations to release their energy in a comfortable pursuit of their individual and collective dreams. Seamlessness and or unobstructed connectivities in areas like the following: movement of goods, free flow of service delivery, free and optimal flow of information which is accessible to all. What we're speaking about here, Mr. President, is the centrality of connectivity in realizing the energies of our people, and it's key in ensuring that
we work in a manner that is coherent. In other words, the following are key. Seamlessness between aviation, rail, and road, and a free flow of information. If we put emphasis in those, we get automatically integrated. Without these principles having a status of being primacy principle, it is going to be difficult for our peoples to be realized as a nation. And I want to say, Mr. President, that the sustainable future of this nation is in the inherent potential energy of our people, South African in both their individual and collective form. The national singularity and functionality of our country as directed by the Constitution of the Republic presupposes the following. South Africans that believe in the correctness of dealing with the injustices of the past as a single nation based on the non-racial and non-sexism without prejudices of whatever form ethnicity in mind, beyond just a constitutional imperatives. What do I mean by this? Is that liberation gave us a framework that compelled us to live together, which is law. The biggest challenge we are facing now is leading this nation to accept the correctness of the principle of the law. That is the most difficult part, because it means you create a mindset. And I can tell you, this objectives is not for the simple-minded. The principle is, the forebears of the African National Congress, when they came together, they coined the challenges that are facing this country and found them to be so complex. And they had the great minds equal to the complexity of the challenges. Then no simple mind or a simple party can be able to deal with these challenges except the African National Congress. Now, South Africans, I'm just happy because some of these guys who are anti-race, a struggle which is not the struggle of the African National Congress. By the way, the struggle of the movement was never against a race. It has always been against a racial system. And at all material times, it doesn't matter what form, as long as it is a discriminative system, we deal with it. But the other problem that is very interesting is that as we deal with this, I hear my friends in the red overalls. They critique people for the quality English, which is a white language. And they rate themselves against others in terms of how best do they speak English. But they want us to believe that they are anti-whites. You've been doing it here. Again?
Point of order.
What's the point of order? Honorable
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Take your seat.
Now I understand why they removed you as Deputy Minister of Finance.
Honorable Member, what's your point of order?
As we are reading literature like this, Chief, we do not lie under oath as members of Parliament. There's never been a situation where we corrected anybody on English.
Honorable Member, what's your point of order?
The pronunciation in particular. If I'm saying that is misleading the House,
that's not a point of order. Honorable
but
Member,
it is.
That's not a point of order.
Okay,
you are politically debating with the member on the floor, not raising a point of order. What process, what privilege is involved here?
But you must debate honestly.
No, it's not a point of order.
Okay, Deputy Speaker, I'm saying we've all been here. If a person says that instead of using console,
honorable member, you are continuing a political debate. I'm switching off your microphone.
It's not our fault. It's the
I'm switching off your microphone. No, you're out of order.
We are reading black skins.
Honorable Kungubela Kubeka, school.
You see, the problem, Honorable Speaker, is that apartheid was actually planned and thoroughly theorized by its proposers. And they really infused it. At times you find this expression in those who claim to be ultra opposed to it. So you mustn't undermine it, because you don't remove apartheid legacy by anger and emotion. You apply theory and science to deal with it. On the alignment of sectoral priorities within national strategic and coordinated policy framework. Since the dawn of democracy in 1994, South Africa's institutionalization and policy direction tended to deliver an economic environment that sought to enable and facilitate policy discourse that rallies behind the program of institutional economics. This approach would have made informed assumptions on the role of the state, business, academia, organized labor, and civil society. In a normal environment, these focus areas would have been the primary ingredients towards an integrated economic plan such as National Development Plan. But I thought, however, the failure to strike, Mr. President, a workable and a mutually beneficial balance amongst all social partners behind the democratization problem may have generated unintended consequences. It would appear that the owners of the factors of productions were prepared to rally behind the new dawn as long as it did not affect their economic situation. However, as history would have it, the democratization process is costly exercise wherein the wealthy must subsidize the poor, and it means in this instance, for practical purposes, white would need to share their wealth with the black people who are historically disadvantaged. Without capable and a dedicated institution to facilitate these social movement and transactions, South Africa faced a quagmire wherein the haves would have felt that the security of their generational wealth is being threatened by the have-nots who were not rent-seeking without the courtesy of value addition and true opportunistic behavior. It is my argument the cost of economic fragmentation and policy misalignment has been detrimental and so on. But I think quickly there are a few issues that I need to deal with. Yeah. I listened to, for instance, to DA. All the issues Honorable Maimane articulated, there's a significant number of them. It's a repetition of the speech of the president. Now, if that is what you came to say here, you were supposed to have asked for leave. You don't need to come here. Because the issue of capable state is there in the speech. National minimum wage is there in the president's speech. The issue of Reserve Bank, the president consistently has dealt with it. SAA equity partner is the position of the cabinet. So it's a repetition of what we are doing. Now, if you talk about taking tough decisions, the appointment of commissions and the appointment of all these coordinating issues in NPA are an indication of that. Now, in DA, you speak about where you govern. If you go 17-18 and check the financial ratios of Joburg, they have gone 17-18, 2017-2018. You don't even understand that. The ratios of Joburg, you must go and read them, deteriorated since DA took over. You go in the list of municipalities, there's a list of municipalities that have been found wanting on the wasteful expenditure, fruitless expenditure, unauthorized expenditure. Number one is Pretoria, Tshwane. That is where DA is governing. Let me come to the self-appointed commander-in-chief. The commander-in-chief says he says in the ANC the center is not holding because he wants to build a cult in the ANC. ANC is a democratic organization. It is led movement with independent individuals participating freely, not up to an individual aura. Because we are not a cult, we are a democratic organization. What confuses you about this president? He is consultative. Every individual has got a right to express his view. Something that does not happen in your party because they sing your song, they dance your dance, they jive your jive, they walk where you walk, they attend the party you attend. That's why they call one of your guys the ice boy. Because they carry water for you. So, I want to believe that you are not leading a cult because I listened to you I laughed when you said the president appointed an intellectually challenged person. And I realized that we're in trouble. And I realized we're in trouble because I thought, how do I interact with this? I thought, how do I interact with this? What I've realized is that debating with you, Honorable Malema, is a waste of time because I don't know what you stand for. Because if I left South Africa when you were defending Comrade Praveen and stayed in England, I would have spoken about you on that basis and get shocked when I come some months ago and see you in a different position. Because I don't know what you stand for. Because I don't know what you stand for. On the public protector, I've watched your video. You were lecturing people. And total opposite of what you said, you are setting in that video. The point is, your weakness, Comrade Malema, Chief Commander-in-Chief, you have got no sense of self-contradiction. And that is a serious problem. A leader who does not have a sense of self-contradiction is a very dangerous leader. There's a time you praise me, I will come and collect the video where you said this mayor who operated like this, suddenly today I'm intellectually challenged. How? I mean, the question is, I do not know what is your position. And my conviction about you is that anything that gratifies you is your position. Anything that speaks about you is your position. Anything that puts something in your pocket is your position. That's it.
Honorable Gungubele, please take your seat. Yes, honorable member, what are you rising on?
On the point of order.
Yes. Honorable members, order please. Let's
Is it
listen to you.
parliamentary that a member should talk to a member directly in parliament?
Honorable Gungubele, please talk through the chair.
No, Chair, we're fine. He's hurting. He must release.
Honorable,
it's okay.
Honorable
Take it out.
Your honorable
Take it out. We don't want you to go home and
honorable
peace.
I'm switching off your mic. Hauna order. Ubuwa urata ikarigi ha monantati. Tukopa uskai Peter and Twenu. Assembly. Yeah. So in that.
So, what I want to say, Mr. President, you articulated and restated critical issues. You made an undertaking to this House that very soon you'll be giving progress report on all the issues you stated in your SONA. They must judge you on that. You said there will be performance agreement. They must judge you on that. But unfortunately, the last issue I want to deal with, you know, in 2016, ANC had about 53%. And it was said our support has gone down, which was correct. and then the other party moved from 6% to 8%, and then it was said it has increased. Now we have increased from 53% in 2016 to 57. No, we said that time, we said we don't want to be charged.
Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Yes, sir.
Intellectually challenged.
So, what I want to say, Mr. President, is that when that percentage went down, we refused to be judged it on the basis of 2014. And we said, don't judge us on that basis. And they continue to judge us like that. Then we accepted. It was 53. Now we got 57. Can we be consistent? So all I want to say, Mr. President, the critical question is to lead, because you were elected to lead. South Africans elected ANC.
Deputy Speaker.
Yeah, what are you
That's
raising?
a problem, because intellectually challenged in a sense that you can't compare local government with national elections.
Honorable Malema,
That's
Honorable Malema, take your seat.
Deputy Speaker, point of order.
What's the point of order? Who's talking? Yes, talk please. Yes, let's hear you. What are you raising on?
Deputy Speaker, I thought the point of order was related to what the member was saying, but members are spending here debating and not raising points of orders.
Yeah, you are right. You are correct. Honorable members, I did say let's play by the rules.
Yeah, but which rule is that?
No, you are out of order. You are doing it again. Go ahead, Honorable Gungubela.
Yes, thank you. Honorable Deputy Speaker, if you check, there's a relationship between the support in local government and national elections. There's always a correlation. You must go and check your graph. I don't even know you understand graphs. Because if you do relationships, you will find that there is a relationship between national and local government. There's a point where national would have been up and local government up. National down and down. So, now, you said,
Point of order, Chairperson.
What are you raising? What are you raising on?
There is a difference when you're looking at
No, that's not a point of order. Honorable members, can you understand? You only put across your political view when you are on the podium. You can't politically debate issues you disagree with here. No, you are out of order. If you don't, I'm not going to allow people who are not raising point of orders appropriately. I will just switch off your mic. I'm letting you.
All I want to say, Mr. President, ANC was founded to lead this country, and South Africans have agreed, and they have elected ANC all the time. The duty of the ANC is not to stress about movements that do not have positions or ideology. It is about to focus on the program for which ANC was elected. Lead president, because you are opposed by a president who has no position. He himself cannot explain himself. Bravo, President Cyril Ramaphosa, bravo. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, I'm speaking, honorable
Deputy
member.
Speaker.
You are interrupting my ruling.
Deputy Speaker.
Honorable member, I'm speaking.
Deputy Sama singing.
I'm speaking. Honorable member, I'm speaking.
No, I was saying that
you are interrupting me.
Young people are watching at home.
Honorable member, take your seat. Order.
This embarrassment is just here.
You are not supposed to be speaking as I'm speaking. Kene ki kopa hore ho lona maluko a ntlo e hlomphehileng. Monoko tshwai ha o butse ho ya ka takatso ya tshweng. However you feel about what is being said here, you can't just jump up and want to contradict it. Outside of the rules, we plead with you to play by the rules. That's what will bring about an appropriate audience for yourselves when you speak at your time, but also for the people listening to us. That concludes the business of honorable members. That concludes the list and the budget vote debate and the business of the day. The president is going to sleep on what you said here. He will reply to you tomorrow. The House is
dream.
Constitution and to take our country forward. In my State of the Nation address, I priorities. We're also going to provide reliable and quality basic services and spatial priorities in this term. To ensure that we realize these aspirations, we need a focused and an active presidency. The presidency is required by the Constitution to implement national legislation. Coordination has weakened. Administrations. It is also required to develop and implement national policy in a coherent and in a cohesive manner to remove policy uncertainty. In the past, this envisioned coordination has weakened. There were frequent reshuffles of ministers and a high turnover of senior managers at both national and provincial level that led to instability, misalignment, as well as created quite a lot of confusion. Public policy must be evidence-based and effectively coordinated. And it is for this reason that we have at the center of government reconstituted the policy unit in the Presidency. The policy unit, the policy based and effectively coordinated. And it is for this reason that we have at the center of government reconstituted the policy center of government, reconstituted the policy unit, in the presidency as the nerve center of policy coordination across government. Coordination across government. Center of policy coordination. The nerve center of policy coordination across government. The new policy unit will be leading evidence-based policy making. It will also liaise with a number of think tanks and research institutions and have line of sight of strategic policy interventions. The unit has already hit the ground running by working through the cluster system that we have in government and intergovernmental structures to ensure alignment of national and provincial priorities. In this regard, by the end of August, we will have provincial growth and development strategies that are fully aligned with the medium-term strategic framework that we have at national level. The passing of the National Health Insurance Bill by Cabinet last week is one of the clearest examples of what a focused presidency can achieve, aligned with the medium-term strategic framework that we have at national level. The passing of the National Health Insurance Bill by Cabinet last week is one of the clearest examples of what a focused presidency can achieve. Minister Mkhize has outlined the plans to table the NHI bill before Parliament in the coming days. The establishment of the NHI war room in the presidency has enabled us to gain more to us achieve. Minister will have of strategic. The new policy unit leading structures to ensure alignment of national and provincial priorities. In this regard, by the end of August, we will have provincial growth and development strategies that are fully aligned with the medium-term strategic framework that we have at national level. The passing of the at national level. The new policy unit level work that we have at national level. In the past, we have parachuted development into communities. An example is how we build a clinic in a village without consideration being given to other attendant needs such as transportation, accommodation for healthcare workers, or even economic opportunities for entrepreneurs or small businesses around the same clinic that will provide service to the clinic. At the heart of most service delivery protests is fragmented planning on our part as well as poor communication. If we are to deliver on our electoral mandate, we have to take development to the people, to where they study, where they work, and where they live. If we are to create economic opportunities and bring development to our people, we have to tailor our efforts to the conditions and circumstances of the various parts of our country, be it in Mbombela, Mahikeng, or Umtata, or Atlantis. We are going to the one environment system for mining and the Invest SA one-stop concepts are other examples of the way in national and provincial clusters to plan jointly and to coordinate their programs. This is what our people deserve. They deserve their own people at local national in order to sharpen and strengthen cooperative governance and to implement a well-coordinated as well as a coherent national program of action. We will be increasing focus into more cross-cutting matters like local economic development so that various spheres and departments of state can account for how they are jointly creating jobs and addressing service delivery for our people at local level. From time to time, in the past, we have parachuted development into communities. Local economic development so that various spheres and departments of state can account for how they are well coordinated as well as a coherent national program of action. We will be increasing focus into more cross-cutting matters, more cooperative governance, and to implement a well-coordinated as well as a coherent national program of action. We will be increasing focus into more cross-cutting increasing focus into more cross-cutting matters like local economic development, so that various spheres and departments of state can account for how they are for cross-cutting matters like local economic development, so that various local economic development so that like local economic development so that various spheres and departments of state can account for how they are jointly creating jobs cross-cutting matters like local economic development, so that various spheres and departments of state can account for how they are jointly of state can account for how they are jointly creating jobs and how they are jointly creating jobs and addressing service delivery for creating jobs and addressing service In the past, we have parachuted development into communities. An example is how we build a clinic in a village without consideration being given to other attendant needs such as transportation, accommodation for healthcare workers, or even economic opportunities for entrepreneurs or small businesses around the same clinic that will provide service to the clinic. At the heart of most service delivery protests is fragmented planning on our part. That same factory. If we are to deliver on our electoral mandate, we have to take government to the believed in doing government together with monetary model. That's fully involved and that have district level delivery capacity together with the provinces will be required to provide implementation plans in line with the priorities in the State of the Nation address. In time to come, special Kauleza provincial coordinating forums will be set up for the purposes of oversight and implementation and monitoring. Program of centered that same factory. The Presidency's effort will complement the work of the National Youth Development Agency. It has provided startup financing to more than 6,000 youth-led businesses across the country and has helped already to create 18,000 new jobs. Close to 400,000 young people have received training through the NYDA initiatives in various spheres. This is simply sterling work by the NYDA and deserves our congratulations because they are doing good work. On a small or room where these businesses are shooted to see of the function of the curve. Policy development and implementation is getting more and more. The plans to table the NHI bill in the country and moving the NHI forward, the bill, we got at the president all the greens of the employment. You stop searching. It is even more difficult to imagine the condition of a young graduate who sends out their CVs daily but receives one rejection letter after another. The reason given is that they lack experience. You lose morale and you become discouraged. Many more struggle to enter the world of self-employment by running their own enterprises because basic development is small business support programs have limited reach. Our youth need a hand up in order to help them realize economic freedom in their lifetime. Even in a weakened economy, we are duty-bound to address and remedy the condition of our young people who are not in education, who are not in employment or training, and we simply cannot afford to fail them. In promoting youth employment in a focused manner, we will be bringing the weight of the presidency behind the efforts of national and provincial provincial governments, as well as local government, but more importantly, business as well. We will be doing so in a manner that is both focused and practical. Promotingly, business as well. We will be doing so in a manner that is both focused and practical. We have a coordinated plan that will be rolled out across government in partnership with the private sector in the business world as well. It is holistic because it incorporates the provisions of workplace opportunities, the SETAs, as well as the Jobs Fund. It is inclusive because it involves coordinated planning, and we simply cannot afford to fail them. In promoting youth employment in a focused manner, we will be bringing the weight of the presidency behind the efforts of national and provincial governments, as well as local government, but more importantly, business as well. We will be doing so in a manner that is both focused and practical. We have a coordinated plan that will be rolled out. In promoting youth employment in a focused manner, we will be bringing the weight of the presidency behind the effort behind the employment or training, and we simply cannot afford to fail them. In promoting youth employment in a focused manner, we will be bringing the weight of the presidency behind the efforts of national and provincial governments, as well as local government. In promoting youth employment in a focused manner, we will be bringing the weight of the presidency manner. We will be bringing the weight of our young people who are not in education, who are not in employment or training, and we simply cannot afford to fail them. In promoting youth employment in a focused manner, we will be bringing the weight of the presidency behind the efforts of national and provincial We will be bringing the weight of the presidency behind the efforts of national and provincial governments, as well as local government, but more importantly, business as well. We will be doing so in a manner that is both focused and practical. We have a coordinated plan that will be rolled out across government. In partnership with the private sector in the business world as well. The Presidency's effort will complement the work of the National Youth Development Agency. It has provided startup financing to more than 6,000 youth-led businesses across the country and has helped already The Presidency's effort will complement the work of the National Youth Development Agency. It has provided startup financing to more than 6,000 youth-led businesses across the country and has helped already to create 18,000 new jobs. Close to 400,000 young people have received training through the NYDA initiatives in various spheres. This is simply sterling work by the NYDA and deserves our congratulations because they are doing good work. The agency is also working with partners in the private sector to link young entrepreneurs with markets through supplier development programs and revitalizing the National Youth Service Program, which will now be taken on a major scale by government. The NYDA can and should do more. Hence, we will in the coming years bring them closer to government and increase their budget allocations as well. As a country, yes, we will increase their budget. As a country that must take full advantage of our substantial youth dividend, we need all social partners on board to support and complement government efforts. The Youth Employment Service has been hugely successful in bridging the divide between education and entry into the formal workplace. Other initiatives such as Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator and the Gauteng Provincial Government's TEPO 1 Million program are program education and entry into the formal workplace. Other initiatives such as Harambee support and complement government efforts. The Youth Employment Service has been hugely successful in bridging the divide between education and entry into the formal workplace. workplace. Into the formal workplace.